Before the international break, we can expect probably one more humiliation. It's Arsenal away this weekend. To remind us how big that task is, I'm pleased to say that we're joined by Seb, who's from a podcast called The Pot Shot, to help us preview the game. Seb, sorry to keep you waiting. We had a lot to get off our chest at the moment.
No worries.
I'm sure you can imagine. How are you getting on this season? I mean, Saka was saying today he believes that Arsenal are finally going to beat Manchester City to the title. Is he right?
It does feel like it. I mean, if you consider we're 5 or 6 games into the new season, we've played Villa away, Tottenham away, Manchester City away, Brighton away, with the not so mitigating circumstances of losing Martin Odegaard last international break and having a very, let's call it interesting sending off of Declan Rice just before the Tottenham game. Coming out of that run of fixtures with 7 points against Tottenham, Villa, and City away is a mighty task, considering we're sort of still getting up to grips with finding a rhythm and finding sort of a momentum coming into the season.
The injury you mentioned there to Odegaard, has that kind of forced him to come up with some different combinations and of other players kind of stepped in? I haven't seen too much of Arsenal, but I know that's the kind of stuff that you look at on your podcast.
Yeah, so there are, I think we can sort of divide these up into two categories of games. Like immediately after the international break, we had Spurs and City away, which, are different circumstances, considering if you're losing your most ball dominant player, a player that sort of is responsible for the tempo at which your team plays, coming up against teams that are as good as these two, you're going to see possession a bit. So we did adjust, and we used the same shape in all 4 games, but in a slightly different way. So against Tottenham and against Spurs, Tottenham and Manchester City, we set up in a 4-4-2, sat deeper, and used our front two, which in these games were Leandro Trossard and Kai Havertz, as exit players to hold the ball up, bring the wide players in, and look more so at controlling the game out of possession rather than doing as much in possession. Against Leicester, the story obviously is a bit different. For one, Leicester and the recent Champions League game against PSG are the first games we saw Riccardo Calafiori really coming into the team, and his individual quality really gives the team a new dynamic, considering he is, I called him on a recent podcast, a give and go player. He's someone who isn't content with sitting in a space and dictating from there. He wants to continue providing his quality in individual actions even after he plays a pass. So he plays a pass, he goes forward, he gets into momentum, and he creates dynamism through his off-ball running and through his combinations with different teammates. So that has changed the dynamic even more so. We saw a lot more ball dominance from the sort of double false nines in this case, in Havertz and Leandro Trossard, who sort of connect with the wide players on either side, which allowed Declan Rice to drop deeper and contribute to more dictation of play and switching play and sort of being a bit of a quarterback to the team, which in my opinion gives him a lot more access to actually contributing to the game, whereas in the first few games of the season, where we were sort of more statically in a 4-3-3, he was one of the 8s, basically playing as a high interior in the left half space, receiving with his back to goal, receiving in very tight, congested areas, and you're not really going to get the same amount of attacking quality out of him if you have him receiving in those spaces than you are if you have him behind the ball, actually contributing to play, able to drive with the ball and create meaningful sort of contributions with his passing and his carrying.
Give us a little shred of hope, Seb, for the weekend. Is there any way that we can get anything out of this? Is there anybody that's going to be missing? Is he going to change the team too much? Is he going to have one eye on the Champions League? Is there any hope for us at all?
So I do think we will see some rotation in the game. I expect guys like, specifically, I think Ethan Nwaneri is likely to start, in my opinion. He came on against Leicester, he started the game against Bolton, and he's impressed in every appearance he's been on so far. He is about as rubber stamped as a youth player is going to get at this level. He already looks like an accomplished senior player. He's an 8 that can replicate a lot of the stuff Odegaard does when he plays on that side. He's a great driver of the ball. He's very creative. He can dribble through multiple players, get shots off, etc. So he's someone who can actually affect play well and seems comfortable at that level. So I expect him to start. I hear myself talking about it, and that doesn't really sound like something positive for Southampton.
No, I think we're hoping the game might get called off, to be honest.
Yeah, I do struggle seeing the positives here because Arsenal feel like the exact things that Southampton actually struggle with.
100%.
In terms of
pieces,
us.
especially.
We're with you on
that's
that.
the big point. Martin teams have been historically iffy on set pieces, and for as much as I like him, Aaron Ramsdale isn't a good keeper on set pieces and has been a big weakness in defending set pieces even at Arsenal over his time. So combining one of our contributors, Jay, calls him one of the worst set piece goalkeepers in the league, with a team that historically hasn't been great on set pieces.
That's interesting.
Is a combination that's quite bad. I think we have. I think the goals United scored, the first two, which came off set pieces.
I think our defenders were so bad at set pieces as well. Maybe it just gets masked. I think the midfielders,
Ramsdale is Ramsdale is very hesitant to get off his line, and very hesitant to really. He's a reactive goalkeeper rather than a proactive one. And for the few games he came into last season when Raya wasn't allowed to be played against Brentford, you can see that contrast quite starkly between a keeper that is very, very proactive, wants to get to balls, wants to pluck things out of his area, and really control his 18-yard box, versus a keeper that is more reactive, more content to stay on his line and react to situations. And that is a problem when you're defending set pieces and you have a team that isn't particularly good at defending set pieces. The other big thing is out of possession. Like, Arsenal is one of the best coordinated presses in the league, maybe even in Europe at this point, and has been historically. And I remember games against Tottenham last season where there was a lot of emphasis on pressing, build up high, creating high turnovers and getting shots off that way. And I can already see a few faces getting a bit angry there. It gives me I do like Saints, and I like Russell Martin especially. So I watched him a fair bit last year, and I have this feeling that we could see something akin to the Leicester home game at the start of last season. In terms of
what, I'm so glad I got you on, Seb.
You got too far now.
Build up.
Alfie, it looks like Joe Aribo might be coming in.
Maybe twice. It's all good.
Ross Stewart up front as well. Those were the names that Russell Martin was talking positively about.
Yeah.
So we think Aribo might come in. Could be a first start for Stewart.
Yeah, so Russell Martin's obviously he's flip-flopped a little bit in the sense that after 3 games, he said that the players, that he started the season, he's been too loyal to, and he obviously took them out of the team. And then, after this on Monday night, he's kind of turned around and said, actually, I've been too loyal to the players that I've started this time. And, it's Ross Stewart, it's Joe Aribo who've come on and been outstanding. And, it suggests that they're going to come on and start. He said that they should have started, and obviously Anne Lallana will as well. So, yeah, I expect another couple of changes, but I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. Like, he's made good changes to his team over the course of the last 12 months, and he's made, like Glen alluded to there, system changes that have really worked. But I don't think it's ideal that 7 games into a season, he's still sort of thinking that he's realising new things about who should be starting, who should be playing. And Seb's absolutely correct about what Arsenal are strong at. And I wrote a little bit today about just how good they are and why it's the nightmare fixture at this point, because Southampton conceded 6 goals from set pieces, the most of any team in the league. It's 4 from corners, and they're an absolute joke from corners. Gabriel's, he's in fantasy teams going to get a hat trick, I hope. No, I don't hope, but certainly for my FPL fantasy, I did. So I just think it's the perfect nightmare for Saints this weekend, and hopefully they can prove me totally wrong and show that football is just 11 men kicking a ball around, and anything can happen.
I guess, Glenn, for us, it's going to be about just seeing a sensible team selection, a bit of effort from the players that are on the pitch, and maybe a half-decent tactical approach. It seems crazy that those are the things we're just wanting and willing at the moment, but we just want to see them turn up and give it a go.
Yeah, I do. I want to get out of the game without being embarrassed. For Aaron Ramsdale's sake, as much as anything. We've talked about us letting in 3 goals a game. I think if we got away with with 2 or 3, I think we'd be quite happy with that. Such is the low bar that we're setting at the moment. But I mean, I think all you can do when you play teams like Arsenal, Manchester City, is look at the areas of every area of their team is obviously stronger than every area of ours. But you've got to look at what is not quite as good. And I mean, I've looked at Arsenal over the last few games, and obviously since Odegaard out, there has been a bit of a lack of the creativity. The likes of Trossard, Martinelli, yes, they're very, very good players, obviously, but we're talking about Arsenal standards here. We're not talking about Southampton standards. But they're not quite as good as the players that have come out of the team. So, and Havertz is a player that divides opinion, but he seems to have stepped up a notch. He seems to have stepped up a notch this season, and he's doing really well. So I think there is the potential there for us to, as long as we concentrate defensively for the whole game, we could frustrate Arsenal a little bit, with Odegaard not being there. But going the other way, I'd be absolutely amazed if we get anywhere near their goal, to be honest. We've got to play with the centre forward, but you look at the Arsenal back four, it's so well drilled. The 2 centre halves are world class. I'd forgotten about it. I saw Calafiori play when he scored that goal against City, and I sort of remembered what a good player he looked when he played for Italy in the summer. Ben White, I can't stand, but he's a good player. They've got so much strength all over the pitch. We've just got to look for those little crumbs, and I just hope that we can keep it relatively solid and try and frustrate Arsenal for as long as we can. And the most important thing for us is that if we do go a goal down, we've just got to keep, we just got to get back on the horse and keep doing it. We can't afford to give up, because you give up for 20 minutes against Bournemouth and you let in 3 goals. If you give up for 20 minutes against Arsenal, it just could be absolutely horrendous. So, Saints have just got to go there and do their best, put in a load of effort, put in a good performance, try and cause Arsenal some problems. I'm not having the no striker thing, even against Arsenal. We've got to at least have someone up there to give the centre half something to think about, even if it's Paul Onuachu for a laugh. I mean, it would be amusing, wouldn't it? But they won't have seen anything like that before. But
that would be that would be some redemption arc. I guess, Steve, last time in the Premier League, it was 2 draws. We had the 1-1 draw at home, and then there was the Ruben Sellers masterclass. It was 3-3 at the Emirates. So there is that,
I do remember that one.
Yeah, I mean, let's be brutally honest. That should have been 4 points, not 2. We made a right horlicks of that in the last, in injury time, didn't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you've always got to have hope, because kind of otherwise, what's the point? But of course, it's going to be in thin supply after what we've seen on Monday. And as you previously said, our defending from set pieces is, from a numeric perspective, is terrible. Whereas Arsenal were the complete opposite. Obviously their set piece coach gets rave reviews every other week. I don't see any other teams' coaches getting singled out for praise when they score from a corner. But hey ho, here we are. This is Arsenal Twitter we're talking about, so it's full of utter lunatics at the best of times. But I will kind of forewarn Arsenal fans: you are going to see a lot of time wasting. And let's not have the hypocrisy
from a Russell Martin team.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, let's not have the hypocrisy that that follows. Obviously, that City away game where Arsenal were perfectly valid to play the way that they did in that second half, because
Brighton as well, Steve.
Yep, the game circumstances, absolutely fair enough, and any other team in their position would or should have done the same. But we're going to be doing that for a considerable period of Saturday's game, I would have thought, and that as a result, there should be a kind of acceptance that the gulf in resources between the two teams, not just in terms of performances, but the ability to put these players that are. I mean, you've got at least £100 million player in Declan Rice that you can put out on the team, and our transfer record. I think if all of the clauses get enacted on Aaron Ramsdale's deal, then that'll be 25, and that's that will be our record signing. So just the sheer gulf in resources and what you've got available to you, it does kind of show up the this sort of best league in the world bollocks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and we go there. I mean, we start the game at 0-0 at least. We'll see how long it lasts, but as ever, you never know. I mean, I think we probably do know, but to begin it, you kind of try and tell yourself that somehow this time will be different, and we'll see. But I think realistically, most Saints fans who are going on Saturday will probably think, well, if we can just get out of this without having our asses completely handed to us on a plate, then that's probably a positive, and we take the non-damage to the goal difference and move on.
Seb, I'm going to ask you for a score prediction in just a moment, because we do this every week and we always get it wrong. There were, however, 3 people in our Patreons league that got 3 points this week. So congratulations to Andrew Hatcher, Simon Wright, and Mike Bintz. Mike is now top of our Patreon leaderboard. He's got 10 points. Seb, score prediction for you, please.
Oh, I'm really bad at these.
Be kind. Well, welcome to the club. There's going to be some big numbers here, isn't there?
I'm going to go 3-0 to the Arsenal. I think, considering we've been going on like 6 or 7 games in the past 3 weeks, there's bound to be some energy reservation at some point during the game. I'd be surprised if there wasn't at least one set-piece goal in there, but I don't think this will be a tonking, as it were, either way. Either through Southampton actually defending well or through Arsenal taking the foot off the gas. I don't think we're going to see an outrageous scoreline. And if I can say something, I really hope this isn't going to be taken as the end for Russell Martin. I can't help but root for the guy. I think we need managers in the league that are as good of a person as Russell Martin seems to be. I really like the way he presents himself and the way he carries himself. I was taken aback by this sort of tactics seminar he gave last season to the fans. That sort of transparency is really appreciated. And I have a big problem with this cynicism around promoted teams and the way they're supposed to be playing, and this conflation between pragmatism being a proxy word for every promoted team has to sit in their own box and defend and basically do nothing else, and everything that goes beyond that is decried as naivety. We can have discussions on the merits of how good Russell Martin is in coaching the way he coaches. I do think he is good and can adapt and has adapted last season. But dismissing it out of hand is something that tends to happen from the outside for coaches like this. And I can't help but root for people that are as strong-bound in their views as Russell Martin is.
Yes, it's interesting to get your opinion on that. And I think, as Steve kind of said there, it does highlight the gulf between the Premier League and the Championship, especially last year with all 3 promoted sides getting relegated. And obviously the bookies predicting the same might happen this time round. We got you down for a 3. Steve, any advance on 3 goals?
I was probably going to go 1 more each, 1 more aside, so 4-1.
Okay, interesting. Glenn?
Arsenal's defence, they've not kept as many clean sheets as they did sort of per game as they did last season. They've been, I mean, obviously the ones against Leicester were kind of slightly freakish, but yeah, Brighton have scored. Obviously Leicester have scored a couple of times. City scored a couple of times. So it's not been the sort of rock solid defence that they had throughout all of last season so far.
Glenn, do you want to pick a number out the air?
Seb's already taken it. Yeah, Seb's already taken it. What I was going to say, to be honest, I was going to say 3-0, and I will go with 3-0, which, you know, I think we'll be sort of, you know, we'll stick to it, stick with it. But I honestly can't see us scoring. I think Arsenal's Arsenal's defence is too good. I think a midfield which will probably contain two of Rice, Partey, and Jorginho. I just think they'll be too much for our midfield as well. And I think it will be a backs to the wall effort for a vast majority of the game. I'd be surprised if we even see David Raya on the highlight reel on Match of the Day, to be honest. So no, I'll go 3-0 to Arsenal.
And Alfie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go one more, just go 4-0. I mean, Steve, you sort of say that their defence hasn't been as rock solid as it has last season. And, I think that just sort of shows how good they were last year, because they played, 8 games and kept 6 clean sheets, is it? 8 competitive games and kept 6 clean sheets.
We are still at the point where we have conceded 3. Oh, no, it has to be more now, considering the Manchester City game. I think we have 5 goals conceded away from home in 2024.
Yeah, five clean sheets in 8 games, which isn't bad going. So I don't see Southampton scoring, but yeah, I'll go 4-0.
All right. If you're watching live, don't forget to put your score predictions into the comments. Cheers, Seb. Thanks for coming on. Really insightful, and enjoy the weekend. And we'll probably catch up later in the season if that's all right.
No worries. Would love that.
Well, that's made us all feel nice and positive for the weekend.